reckon they're going to hold up for him?
They might.
I bet they might.
We'll see, the platform party's the last one in too, so they can go ahead and bring people in, and then it'll take 10 minutes to get in.
Oh, yeah. Wonder what happened. He flew in just in time to make this, and he'll cut out the back door as soon as it's over.
Yeah, see, they're at recess now. So yeah, these are recess because of the Republican convention. You hand me my bag.
morning and welcome. I'm Vander Hill, Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs at the University. The national anthem this morning will be sung by Susan Atherton, a 1988 graduate of the School of Music and the College of Fine Arts. Will the audience please rise and remain standing for the invocation? The invocation this morning will be given by Bishop Michael McGrew of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Our Heavenly Father, as we gather here this morning to celebrate with those who graduated this year, we pray that Thou wilt be with us, that Thou wilt awaken in our hearts and our minds an awareness of our responsibilities before Thee, awareness of the importance that this occasion has for each of us and the potential that each of us has to make of this a starting point for good. We pray that that will be the case and that Thou wilt bless our efforts. We especially pray that Thou wilt bless those who participate in this ceremony today, that their contribution will make a positive impact as well upon us and be pleasing before Thee. All this we pray in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Will you please be seated? It is now my pleasure to introduce to you the President of Ball State University, Dr. John Worthen.
Honored guests, members of the faculty, graduates, parents, and friends, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this 96th commencement of Ball State University. This is a wonderful day, a day of celebration, and we are glad that all of you are here to share in this important occasion. I'm pleased now to introduce members of the Board of Trustees and members of the administration and others on the platform. Would you please hold your applause until all have been introduced? Members of the Board of Trustees are, and I'll ask you to stand, James D. Garrison, Vice President of the Board. James W. Parks, Secretary of the Board. Susan L. Keel. And members of the administration are Provost Vander Hill, Thomas J. Kinghorn, Vice President for Business Affairs and Treasurer. Dr. Douglas F. McConkey, Vice President for Student Affairs. Dr. Richard C. McKee, Assistant to the President. Jack H. Miller, Vice President for University Advancement. Dr. Thomas A. Kaluzinski, Associate Provost for Academic Services and Director of Summer Sessions. Dr. Judith B. Repke, Associate Provost for Academic Programs and Faculty Development. Dr. Donald W. Meixel, Dean of Students. Dr. Joseph S. Rawlings, Dean of the School of Continuing Education. Dr. David L. Wheeler, Dean of the Graduate School and Research. Dr. Arno F. Wittig, Dean of the Honors College. Dr. Michael B. Wood, Dean of University Libraries. And I'm also pleased to introduce Mr. Hollis Hughes, President of the Ball State University Alumni Council. Dr. Earl L. Kahn, Professor and Chair, Department of Journalism, and Chairman of the University Senate. Dr. Kahn is carrying the Ball State University mace today. Dr. William Edson, Professor of History and Chair of the Undergraduate Policies Council. And at this time, I would like to introduce the college deans and their associates who will be participating in the program and handing out diplomas to you today. Dean Dwayne O. Eddy, College of Applied Sciences and Technology, and Assistant Dean Gene Whittick. Dean Robert A. Fisher, College of Architecture and Planning, and Associate Dean Jeffrey Hall. Dean Neil A. Palumba, College of Business, and Associate Dean Terry L. Arndt. Dean John K. Urice, Dean of Fine Arts, and Associate Dean Margaret M. Merriam. Dean Marjorie Smelstor, College of Science and Humanities, and Associate Dean Donald E. Van Meter. Dean Theodore J. Kowalski, Teachers College, and Associate Dean Roy A. Weaver. Assisting with the honorary degrees and doctorate and special degrees will be Dr. Dwight W. Hoover, Chairman of the Graduate Education Committee and Professor of History. Signing for today's ceremony is Jeffrey Sparks, a music major, College of Fine Arts. Would you join me now in recognizing these individuals? Commencements are always linked with thoughts of both the past and the future. As you who are graduating today move forward to a new phase of your life, we're confident that you take with you a sound education, many fond memories, and a feeling of pride in this institution, which is soon to be your alma mater. Our first commencement was held in 1919. There were 10 graduates in that commencement. All had transferred to the institution when it had opened the previous autumn as Eastern Indiana Division of Indiana State Normal School. Since then, 93,839 have graduated, and today 1,282 are eligible to graduate. Many changes have occurred between these commencements. The institution's name was changed first in 1922 and again in 1929, and finally in 1965 we became Ball State University. And while we were a small two-year branch campus in 1918, we are now a major university with 125 different academic programs of study offered in 6 different colleges. Teachers College is one of the nation's leading suppliers of professional educators. The College of Architecture and Planning is the only state-supported architecture program in Indiana. The College of Business includes one of the 25 largest undergraduate programs in business in the country. The College of Sciences and Humanities has 23 departments and provides instruction in the liberal arts and sciences to every student in the university. The College of Applied Sciences and Technology offers state-of-the-art programs for students in 7 different professional areas. The College of Fine Arts brings together music, art, and theater, and dance, and adds immeasurably to the aesthetic and cultural life of the university and the broader community. The university has grown over the past 7 years in numbers, in curricular offerings, and certainly in academic strength. As students, each of you has participated in the life of the university, and in your own way, you have helped shape what Ball State is today. You've met rigorous academic demands, and today we're celebrating your competence by awarding you the degrees which you've earned. As you move on, those of us you leave behind pledge to you that we will continue to keep Ball State standards high and that we will continue to work to strengthen the quality of your university. All of us gathered here today take great pride in Ball State University, and I assure you, the graduates, Ball State is very proud of you. May we now proceed with the conferral of the honorary degrees. One of the special parts of our commencement ceremony is the awarding of honorary degrees. It gives the university an opportunity to recognize individuals who have demonstrated outstanding achievement in their field or provided extraordinary service to the state or nation. These persons represent excellence. They are models for all of us to emulate. And today we are honored to have two such individuals whom we want to recognize. I ask Dean Wheeler and Mr. Garrettson to come forward to assist. James Hadley Billington, will you please present yourself for the awarding of this degree?
Dr. James Hadley Billington, the Librarian of Congress, has pursued a rich and diverse career as an author, historian, educator, and administrator. Born in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania in 1929, Professor Billington was educated in the public schools of the Philadelphia area. At an early age, he was encouraged to develop a love of learning and to appreciate the rewards of intellectual inquiry. In 1950, he earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in history, summa cum laude, from Princeton University, graduating as a member of Phi Beta Kappa and as class valedictorian. In 1953, he earned his Doctor of Philosophy degree in modern history at Oxford University, where he was a Rhodes Scholar at Balliol College. From 1953 to 1956, he served in the United States Army, and during his final 3 months of service, he traveled throughout the world with Allen W. Dulles, then Deputy Director of the Central Intelligence Agency. From 1957 to 1961, Dr. Billington was an instructor and then assistant professor in the History Department at Harvard University, where he taught courses in Soviet history and Western tradition, serving at Harvard's Russian Research Center for a year. He taught at Princeton University, rising to the rank of full professor from 1962 to 1973. For 14 years, from 1973 to 1987, Dr. Billington was director of the Smithsonian Institution's Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars, created by Congress in 1968 for the pursuit of advanced studies in the humanities and social sciences. On September 14, 1987, Dr. Billington was sworn in as the 13th Librarian of Congress by President Ronald Reagan. Commonly referred to as the world's largest library by the millions of people who visit there each year, the Library of Congress houses more than 84 million items. Dr. Billington is the author of several books, including Fire in the Minds of Men, Origins of the Revolutionary Tradition, and The Icon and the Axe, an interpretive history of the Russian culture, both of which were nominated for National Book Awards. He has also published widely in professional and popular journals. A respected scholar who is truly at home in the global academic community, Professor Billington has served in a variety of capacities throughout the world, including Japan, Italy, France, Austria, England, and Puerto Rico. Most recently, Dr. Billington, a recognized expert in Russian history and culture, accompanied President and Mrs. Reagan to the Soviet Union for the Moscow summit meeting as an advisor. Mr. President, it is my honor to present a distinguished librarian and scholar, James Hadley Billington, with a degree Doctor of Humanities honoris causa.
By the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Ball State University, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humanities, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges thereunto pertaining, and award you this diploma in testimony thereof, and present you the academic hood for this degree.
I want to thank you all for this honor and to say how restorative it is to come from the capital of America to the heartland of America, from the treasury of research materials that is the Library of Congress, to a great center of active teaching in and for the nation like this one. Teaching links the legacy of yesterday with the possibilities of tomorrow, and our democratic society, if it is to flourish in the information age that lies ahead, needs more than just knowledge by a few. It needs the practical wisdom that can be shared with all, and which must be embodied and transmitted by dedicated teachers of the kind that you both have and produce here at Ball State. And it is a special honor for me to share the platform here today with one of our most admired public servants, Representative Lee Hamilton, whose integrity, thoughtfulness, and range of vision makes him a very special kind of teacher for our nation from this state. In including me today, you are really honoring, I think, those special teachers who mediate books to people and are usually called librarians. We at the Library of Congress are currently immersed in a year-long review to determine how to build an information system for the 21st century, and are heavily preoccupied with new technologies, the kind that can better preserve, develop, and deliver more of the contents of the world's largest repository of knowledge to the Congress and to the people of our country. Incidentally, we would welcome your ideas and thoughts about what this great repository for all of you ought to be doing with and for all of you. But what I want to say briefly today is that is a few words about that durable old form of technology for mediating knowledge to people, which we commonly call books. And it seems fitting that our National Library should be, in fact, as well as named, the Library of Congress. For when the very first Continental Congress met in Philadelphia in 1774, they met in a library building and debated the conditions for borrowing books before they began creating the institutions of our country. All through the 19th century, the books of the Library of Congress were actually stored in the halls of Congress itself. And this is more than symbolic, I think, because our type of democracy has depended on knowledge and grown through books, which by their very nature foster freedom with dignity. Books do not coerce, they convince. They speak to the active individual, to the private voice of reason. They do not shriek to passive crowds cowering before the megaphones of authority. If books have historically been the companion of a responsible democracy, they are also keys not only to the dynamism of our past, but I think to much of the national competitiveness that we will have to have in the future. They tend to bring things together for a widely scattered people, just as libraries bring books together for people. Books disagree with one another. They foster the active individual, the responsible citizen who finds answers for himself, as well as wisdom that slowly is inculcated within those who live in and around books. Northrop Frye has written that the rearview mirror is our only real crystal ball. And time and again in the modern era, we find inspiration for innovation by returning to something old, rediscovering something forgotten, reading a book anew that has been long neglected. Books not only encourage democracy and spur dynamism in our society, they provide us each with an affordable, portable link with the memory mind, the imagination, and yes, the very ability to write, which has been the magic glue and the lubricant that has fled and transmitted civilization from one generation to another. They're a moral antidote, if you like, to the creeping passivity, parochialism, and shortened attention spans of our video culture. And last but not least, books are the best guides we have for the exploration of our own basic humanity, of the world that lies within as well as without, of the messy middle state in which we all live as human beings, somewhere below the angels but above the animals, a fallible, fabulous species on a fragile planet, living at the intersection between the natural and the supernatural, needing all the guidebooks we can find to get us through as each one of us seeks in his or her own way, as you all will, to obtain the mastery of self necessary to sustain the mystery of creation. Libraries, I would suggest, fellow graduates, can be your refueling places for the adventure of learning and the responsibility of teaching that can go on whatever your vocation and location in life once you leave the base camp of this university, as you will be doing today. Because reading is an adventure like that of discovery itself. Columbus, you'll remember, didn't find exactly what he was looking for. He was an Italian sailing for Spain in search of Asia, after all. But because he went out, was willing to take some risks, he found something even more important, and his example built adventure into the opening of the new world. Our America, which slowly emerged to the north of Columbus's discoveries, was, like ancient Israel, founded on a covenant to fulfill justice in time rather than just a compulsion to extend power in space. It was the Pilgrims' alternative to older, more absolute empires. And by limiting rather than expanding central power, by proclaiming rights before rules, by harnessing power to a complex constitution rather than a simple ideology, the founders of this country produced an innovation so stunning that we have yet fully to understand it, and an innovation tremendously dependent on the perpetual renewal that books can bring. So we must go on discovering an America, because being in America is not just a patented privilege, but an invitation to this kind of adventure, a spiritual aspiration, as well as material achievement. It's, after all, the search for Faulkner's bear, for Melville's whale, and for Citizen Kane's rosebud. And it's the hope that buds of all colors will blossom even more in the future America, which will value its technicolor as much as its technology. And it's a dream that a deepened pluralism at home may help secure a more peaceful pluralism for all the earth. For learning in our age must be as global as the economic life of our country has become itself, and indeed as much of the curriculum of this fine institution is. And whether or not you will continue your adventure of learning, are able to help people understand other people, other parts of the world, you will enrich, even ennoble your life by the effort. When the Jesuit order left China in the early 18th century, after the most deeply scholarly and nearly successful effort that the West ever made deeply to understand that ancient Eastern culture, they left behind a haunting epigraph. Abi viator, congratulare mortuis condolo vivis, ora pro omnibus mirare pace. Go away, voyager, congratulate the dead, console the living, pray for everyone, wonder and be silent. Wonder and be silent. This is a lot easier for readers than it is just for viewers, for adventurers than it is for spectators. And many of the early European discoverers who came closer to this part of America just after Columbus, you'll remember, were searching for a northwest passage to the Pacific. The French philosopher Michel Serres has described the attempt in our time to try to bring back the humanities and the sciences, old books and new technologies, as a new kind of northwest passage that we must bridge in our time, as we learn to both discover and navigate through the times in which we live. There may be no simple answers. There will certainly be no single book with a simple map. But there is, I think, a striving for coherence that often inheres in truly good books. And if you will let them be your guides and companions in the years that lie ahead, they may help you, as they have helped others in the past, find beyond the incoherence of each moment the knowledge that the left and right halves of the brain come together in one human mind, just as the hemispheres, east and west, north and south, are all united in one fragile planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Billington. It's a pleasure to have you back on the Ball State University campus. Lee Herbert Hamilton, will you please present yourself for the awarding of this degree?
Congressman Lee Herbert Hamilton, a senior Democrat in the United States House of Representatives, has served Indiana's 9th District since he was first elected to national office in 1964. Born in Daytona Beach, Florida in 1931, Congressman Hamilton grew up in Evansville, Indiana, and graduated from that city's Central High School in 1948. As a youth, Congressman Hamilton was an outstanding basketball player who participated in high school state competition, won collegiate all-league honors, and played internationally with a winning college team in Germany. In 1982, he was recognized for these achievements and inducted into Indiana's Basketball Hall of Fame. In 1952, Congressman Hamilton graduated cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts degree in history from DePaul University, where he was named Outstanding Senior. Pursuing a scholarship opportunity, he studied at Goethe University in Frankfurt, West Germany, from 1952 to 1953. In 1956, he was graduated from Indiana University's School of Law and admitted to the bar. From 1956 until 1964, he practiced law first in Chicago and then in Columbus, Indiana. Congressman Hamilton is Vice Chairman of the House Joint Economic Committee, Chairman of the Economic Goals and Intergovernmental Policy Subcommittee, and a member of the subcommittees on International Economic Policy and Economic Growth, Trade, and Taxes. He is a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Subcommittee on Arms Control, International Security, and Science, and Chairman of the Subcommittee on Europe and the Middle East. He is also a member of the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, and the Subcommittee on Scientific Research and Technology. In December 1987, Congressman Hamilton was appointed Chairman of the House Select Committee to investigate covert arms transactions with Iran. At the conclusion of the hearings, Congressman Hamilton observed, and I quote him, "These political hearings show us that policies formed under democratic scrutiny are better and wiser than policies formed without it. Policies formed by shortcuts and excessive secrecy undermine a president's ability to make informed decisions, lead to confusion in his administration, and deny him the opportunity to gain and sustain congressional and public support in his policies." End of quotation. Mr. President, it is my honor to present a distinguished Congressman Lee Herbert Hamilton for the degree Doctor of Laws, honoris causa.
By the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Ball State University, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges thereunto pertaining, and award you this diploma and testimony thereof, and present you the academic hood for this degree.
President Worthen and members of the Board of Trustees of Ball State University, members of the faculty, honored graduates, and friends of Ball State University. Once a basketball player in Indiana, always a basketball player. And I'll tell you a little story about that Hall of Fame induction. I happened to have the great misfortune of being inducted at the same night that they inducted a journeyman ball player by the name of Oscar Robertson in the Hall of Fame. He was inducted right before me, and as he was inducted, the MC said, and during Oscar's NBA career, he scored 28,613 points. And I turned to the MC, who happened to be a friend of mine, and said, just forget my point total, would you please? I must say I'm very impressed, Warren, with how efficiently you run these ceremonies. Some weeks ago, Warren contacted me and said, Lee, we would respectfully suggest that you limit your remarks to no more than 10 minutes. And then a week or so ago, he contacted me and said, "Lee, keep it short." And a moment ago, as we were robing, he came up to me and he said, "Lee, for gosh sakes, keep it brief." Warren, I'm a little slower than most, but I've gotten the message, and I'll keep it brief. May I express to President Worthen and the board and all of you my grateful appreciation for the honor that you have granted to me. For one in my rather exposed profession, kind words are always appreciated, especially under circumstances that do not permit my political adversaries the opportunity to respond. I am especially pleased to be here with Dr. James Billington, Librarian of Congress. He is a preeminent scholar, advisor to presidents as well as to members of the Congress, but far more than that, he and his wife, Marge, whose skills and talents, I might say, equal his own, are marvelous people, among the finest that this remarkable country of ours produces. And I am glad that you honor him in Indiana. Now may I spend just a moment talking to you about another crisis. You hear a lot about crisis. Let me add another one to your list. It is the quiet crisis. It's not in the headlines, although it's getting more attention. The concern is that government may no longer be able to attract the kind of quality people it will need to do the essential work that has to be done in the years ahead. At the very time when this country needs the best and the brightest, my impression is that talent is getting harder to attract and to retain. Now, fortunately, government continues to have many remarkably dedicated and competent employees. But over the past decade, more than half of the federal government's top managers have left. About 60% of government managers would not recommend government service to young people. Very few of our top students today express an interest in public service. And recent law school or business school graduates, often in debt, are reluctant to work for government when they can earn more in the private sector. The pinch has especially been felt in trying to attract and retain top professionals. Even as interest in the public service has waned, the need for quality workers has increased. We need all kinds of top-flight people to negotiate treaties, to ensure airplane safety, to oversee banking and security systems, to inspect our food and water, to build reliable weapons, to monitor nuclear power plants, to conduct AIDS and cancer research, to clean up toxic waste, to fight drug abuse. Our country needs the most competent people available to carry out the programs which address our most difficult problems. Now, I recognize that government has its faults, and the proper role of government remains the great question of American politics. But all of us can agree with Alexander Hamilton, who said, "A government ill executed, whatever might be the theory, is in practice poor government." All Americans, ranging from the strongest supporters of government action to its harshest critics, have a stake in seeing that government programs are well run and kept within bounds. Now, there are all kinds of factors that contribute to the difficulty of attracting good people to public service. Sometimes low pay is blamed. Sometimes people are put off by the limited room for advancement. Sometimes the public perception of civil service has suffered from unfair stereotypes, and politicians, even presidents, will run for high government office by running against government. And recent scandals that we read about only too often have led many to wonder whether working in government is an honorable profession. The excitement that some felt working for a federal government on the cutting edge of an attack against
some of our most difficult social problems has dissipated. And I'm also convinced that the way we finance higher education makes it difficult to attract good people to public service. By the time students finish schooling, many of them have accumulated loan debts of $25,000 or even $50,000. The debt is so high, especially for those coming out of graduate school, that public service is much less attractive to them. No wonder then that young people so often today feel compelled to enter the private sector rather than to enter public service. A call to public service can still evoke in Americans a sense of idealism and public spiritedness. But today, unfortunately, many heavily indebted graduates do not have the freedom to answer such a call. Now, there are a lot of reforms that can be made, and I'll not try to list them. Let me simply say that public misconceptions about government career service must be corrected, and feelings in opposition to particular government policies must not become an attitude against government and civil servants in general. We do have to address the pay levels, providing more discretion for government managers and fewer political appointees. Higher education must be financed to ensure that students do not graduate with enormous deficits and debts. And our national commitment to public service must be strengthened. My view is a very simple one. The blessings this country has bestowed on each of us are so bountiful that every man and woman owes a debt of service to the country, apportioned according to the advantages that each has had. The federal government is not going to go away. What it does is getting more complicated and challenging each day. Its work will be done either well or done poorly. It will only be done well if there are good people available to do it. My friends who are graduating, you have been fortunate to attend a fine school like Ball State University. It is a major center of learning and a source of pride to all of us in Indiana. And I am pleased that Ball State University ranks with other institutions which encourage their students to go into public service. Our best hope for addressing many of the nation's problems is men and women who possess the finest qualities of the liberal education. Your liberal arts training has helped you to cultivate the imagination, to lengthen the perspective, to sober the judgment, to broaden the sympathies, and to give direction and purpose to your life. My fear is that many of you may see public service as a career of compromises, low public esteem, and inadequate rewards. My confidence in the future rests on the enormous pool of talented people in this country. And nothing is so essential at a time when the country confronts so many enormous challenges than that the finest men and women should be encouraged to accept the responsibility of public service. And I hope that some of you will be among them. Ball State, I know, has helped each of us to understand the growing responsibilities of citizenship. Our system of government places a heavy responsibility on each one of us to stay informed about the major challenges that confront us, to recognize that in a democracy we do not solve our problems unless a consensus is built around a solution, and to worry less about what happens to ourselves and to the organizations that we cherish, and to focus more on how to advance the common good. Along with your family and friends and teachers, I congratulate you. I hail your entry into the ranks of college graduates. A new college graduate, like a newly minted coin, shines with a luster that the more tarnished graduates among us admire and even envy. Whatever you do, wherever you go, may you bring wisdom into human affairs and move this nation in your generation a step or two closer to a more perfect union. We wish you Godspeed.
Thank you, Congressman Hamilton. You are a source of pride to all of us in Indiana, and we are honored to have you participate in these ceremonies today.
Dean Wheeler and Professor Hoover will now come forward to proceed with the hooding of the doctoral and specialist candidates.
Will the candidates for all doctoral and specialist degrees please rise?